Hey Year 11s, it's Miss Richardson with the croaky voice again. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through how to write an essay. And so you'll be able to find this PowerPoint at the end of the White Tiger PowerPoint that we've been using in class. All you have to do is scan a couple more slides and you'll find it. So if you have a look at the slide before this slide, there's also the practice topics. So there's a bunch of practice topics there. So in the next week, what I would try and do is, if not, write on as many as you can. Okay, so plan as many as you can, write on as many as you can, but don't worry about writing the whole essay. Write the intro and the first paragraph, okay, and then send it to me. Obviously proofread it before you send it to me, because I'm not here to clean up your mess, okay? And then once you get to so our SAC is on the Tuesday, I would suggest on the Monday when you're getting ready, I would suggest going through all the rest of the questions that you haven't done yet and planning them out. So you've at least planned every question and you've tackled as many questions as you could. Okay, that would be my advice. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so Essay Writing 101. The first thing you need to do is to pick a question. Okay, now remember to pick the right question for you, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's the easiest question. In fact, I usually try and stay away from the easiest question because it's the one that everybody picks, and therefore you're actually having to match up against more people. What you'd be better off doing is picking the one that you think less people will pick because it's more complicated, it has a quote in it, there's something about it that people will be put off by. Okay, pick the one that you've got the most to say about. Okay, and usually that's because you kind of don't have a straightforward answer of yes or no. You have an answer that you're like, well, that is true to an extent, but that's the question you want to pick. Okay, so the question that I'm going to be using for this whole PowerPoint is this one here, which is that the White Tiger shows that you can be successful or you can be moral, but not both. Do you agree? Now that question's really good because it does have a lot of scope. So I need to talk about what makes a person successful, what makes a person moral, and why these things are incompatible. So that's really, really cool. There's a lot to be discussed. And that do you agree gives us the opportunity to say to an extent. Hang on. Boop. Yeah, let's scrub that out. To an extent. Oh my gosh, look how bad my handwriting is on this. Anyway, okay. So, the first thing we need to do is highlight the key terms. Once we've written it out, and I like to write it out in my own handwriting, because if I write it in my own handwriting, then I can be sure that I've actually processed each word, because English questions can often be quite tricky in that they put words in there that are not necessarily to trip you up. They're a little bit like Easter eggs, you know, like in a film where you have Easter eggs where it's like a little joke or a little like kind of message by using the word. Okay, so in this question I've written it out in my own handwriting, and then I've highlighted the key terms. Now these are the terms that make or break the question, so you highlight them so not only can you make sure that you address them all in your contention, but also so that you can ensure that you really understood the question and that you're going to use these words throughout. Okay, so I've got successful, moral, both. Okay, and then the do you agree thing I'm going to discuss in terms of to an extent. Now we know what words we're going to need to address in our contention, and it will stop us from missing any vital parts of the question, which can really hurt you when you miss a bit of the question. It really downgrades your mark because it shows that you haven't really understood. Okay, so once I've highlighted key terms, I move on and I start writing out my contention. Okay, so here is where I decide what I feel like is the answer to the question, and that makes it your contention. And then what you want to do is write this statement out using the keywords, okay? Now, the reason we use the keywords is to make sure that we've addressed all of the question in our contention. So, here's my contention. Avanadiga uses the text white tiger to communicate that in a corrupt society such as India, in order for a person to be successful and rise above their circumstances, they must throw off their morals. People who refuse to sacrifice their morals will be taken advantage of by those who are willing to do whatever it takes. Okay, so what I've done is I've used those words successful and morals, and I've got some synonyms in there as well, so like rise above their circumstances, refuse to sacrifice their morals. So I've got a little bit of synonym going on too. Now, the reason why this statement is helpful is because not only do you kind of, solidify what your idea was or what your answer is, but you also can use this later for our intro, okay? Because basically it says exactly what we're going to say in our intro. Look how bad that handwriting is. Oh my goodness. Anyway, let's move on. So, step 3. So step 1 was pick the question. Step 2 is to write out your contention. Step 3, you need to come up with your arguments. Okay? Now here are my arguments. Okay? So, the first one that I came up with is 1. People who are successful lack all morals. Okay? Which hits the idea of you can be successful and that you can't be moral, okay, that a successful person can't be moral, okay, so I'm already really smashing that question, okay, and what you want to make sure is that every paragraph addresses as much of the question as possible, okay. The other thing you'll notice about this argument is that it's about an idea, so rather than structuring through like, Vikram sees this, Balaram shows this, Ashok shows this. Instead of doing it that way, which would be a very kind of like low to medium response, I'm structuring my essay through ideas. So I'm presenting the first idea I have about the question, the second idea I have about the question, and the third idea I have about the question. Okay? Now the reason I do that is because I will have way more depth in my paragraphs than if I just talked about one character per paragraph. In these paragraphs, I can talk about loads of characters per paragraph, okay, which is, way more effective, and it means I'm going to have much more depth in my essay, and I'm not going to be scraping the barrel for evidence. So, these are the people that I came up with that I felt like they were successful because they lacked morals, okay? The Raven, who's the guy who dips his beak into vulnerable people in the darkness. The Buffalo, who takes the bribes from the rickshaw pullers. And we know that the rickshaw pullers are the poorest of the poor. So that's kind of like, that makes him a particular kind of bad guy, because also Vikram was a rickshaw puller and we are supposed to kind of feel really, empathetic for them. We've also got the Boar, who takes sexual advantage of women and the farmer's hard work. The Stork, who takes advantage of the fisherman. We've also got the Great Socialist, which I think would be an interesting one. And even Vijay, the bus conductor, I think he's a really cool person to talk about as well. Now, the reason that here I'm talking about people who are like outside of our main characters is because by talking about these minor characters, I show that I have a depth of understanding, which, like anyone who's read the text once can talk about Balaram, but someone who really understands the text can talk about these characters. So depth of understanding is really good there. Okay, so that's why I've deliberately avoided Balaram there. So the next paragraph I'm going to look at is that People who have morals are forced to compromise them in order to survive and thrive. Okay, so I've got the idea about morals, and the force to compromise them goes with that idea that you can't have morals and be successful. And this survive and thrive thing is about success, isn't it? Okay. Alright, so, excuse me. So the people that I'm going to talk about in this paragraph are the teacher, who sells the clothes and the food because he doesn't get paid. And I'd also kind of be reflecting on that everybody else sees this as an acceptable behaviour because they understand his situation. You've also got Mr. Ashok, which I think would be a good person to talk about because he understands, we've talked about this, haven't we, that he knows that the people beneath him are suffering, that they live in poverty and it's his fault. But he is expected to reinforce the social boundaries, and he does, so that he can maintain his own position. And then obviously you can talk about Balaram. Now I think by this paragraph it'd be really nice to, I would probably focus particularly on Balaram in this paragraph, and then use these two to kind of play a more minor role in my paragraph. But yeah, I think I would make this paragraph more about Balaram, because how he betrays his brother and Mr. Ashok despite loving him, and because he tells us that he loves him, doesn't he, over and over again. So, that he compromises his morals to survive and thrive. He knows that he has to do this. Last but not least, my final paragraph is going to be about people who do not forgo their morals, okay? People who try to be moral and successful, and then how they don't see success. And then I'm going to go further than that. I'm going to say, moreover, they're preyed on by the successful, that the successful people in this text actually see people who are moral and take advantage of them. People like Kusum, people like Vijay, and even people like Mr. Ashok, they take advantage of these people. So these are kind of things that I would talk about. The people that I'm going to use in this paragraph are Vikram, how he refuses to work on the farms for the boar and to fight Kusum for authority, and basically that's what gets him killed. Then my next paragraph is going to be about Balaram taking advantage of Mr. Ashok when he plans to fire him, and how he kind of does that trust me to get him out of the car, and then he sees him kind of kneeling down and looking really vulnerable, and he takes that opportunity to strike. Then I was thinking I'd also talk about Kusum as well, and how Kusum exploits Vikram's morality to provide for his family, and talk about, I was going to actually use this bit of a symbol, it's a symbol I really love. I know we didn't talk about in class today, but that's because there's so many symbols, but I basically chose this one to talk about, which is the symbol of the soft spot on the neck, that Balaram says is his favourite place on the body, because it can be used to control a person with the pressure of a finger. So I thought I would use that. I also included the page reference if you wanted to go look for it. So that's my plan. Now, this plan is actually quite detailed, and it's got way more stuff in it than I'm really going to have time to write, but better having more than less, I always think. And that said, by having a good plan, it's going to save me a world of problems later when I'm writing, because I don't have to think about, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? I kind of already talked about that. I can't really use that anymore. What am I going to do next? If you've already planned it out, it's literally just about putting full sentences around your dot points, which is awesome. Okay, so let's move on. So we've got the 3 steps already done. Let's move to introductions. Okay, so once you've planned out, you're ready to roll. Now, the planning process should take you about 10 minutes, 15 minutes max. Your intro will be very quick and easy though, because intros, despite the fact that I keep seeing these gigantic intros should be short, sharp, to the point. 3 sentences will do it, okay? You need these 4 things, and that is it, okay? So you need title, author, contention, and arguments, okay? Tacker. Now, I've actually used, sorry, my A should be pink. Anyway, I've actually color coordinated so you can actually see where I've got my evidence, where I've got my contention, where I've got my arguments, etc., etc. So, let's have a look. In Ava and Adiga's darkly humorous narrative, The White Tiger, excuse me, Ava and Adiga's darkly humorous narrative, The White Tiger, highlights that in the dog-eat-dog world of India, there is no room for vulnerability caused by morality. Okay, so here is my, presentation of you can be successful and moral, so that morality thing. So I'm already kind of using some of the key terms. In Adiga's India, only the amoral see success. Okay, so I'm directly appealing to the question now. Yay! And those who still cling to even the most basic morals are forced to sacrifice them in order to rise above their circumstances. Okay, so here we go, about being moral and successful. Okay, that's success, isn't it? Moreover, in such a corrupt world, those who refuse to relinquish their values are downtrodden and exploited by those who are willing to prey on them. Okay, so what I've done there is outlined my 3 arguments, and you'll notice that I haven't just listed them like a grocery list. What I've done is I've got the first 2. Okay, so they're my first 2 arguments. So I've got the amoral see only the amoral see success. That's 1. And then I've got those who cling to even the most basic morals are forced to sacrifice them, and that is argument 2. Then I've got in a separate sentence paragraph 3. My argument for paragraph 3. Okay, and that just makes it sound, I guess, less like a shopping list and more like, flowing sentences. All right, let's move on. Okay, teal. I cannot stress this enough, but if you're not using teal by now, God help me, I might just bang my head against a wall, okay? Because teal is one of those life skills, not because you're going to be writing, text response essays for the rest of your life. God willing, I hope you won't be. But they're a structure that you should be using in all your writing, because they're just the most logical way to structure a sentence so that everyone will understand you. If you don't know how to use teal, I'm going to show you how to use it now. Keep watching it until it makes sense. Okay? Practice it as much as you can before the SAC, because that is the big thing that most people stuff up. Okay? Anyway, so every paragraph must use teal. Okay, from paragraph 1 to paragraph 3. You should, by this stage, because you are big kids and we're not writing baby essays anymore, writing big kid essays, you should be layering your evidence now. So not just giving one evidence and explanation. You should be giving something like this: topic sentence, evidence, explanation, evidence number 2, explanation number 2, and link. So that is one piece of evidence, and this is your second piece of evidence. Okay? You should be at least giving 2 pieces of evidence per paragraph. The other things to note about just writing essays, there are words that you should never use, and that is these bad boys. I, me, my, we, our, us. They are all first person talk. Okay, Now, we don't do first person in a proper essay because it's too informal, okay? So we need to keep that out of our language. If you must, you can use something like the reader. Oop. Okay, that would be okay. But try not to. Okay. Then the other piece of advice that I can give you is sentences don't begin with these words. Oops, sorry. And, but, because, so, with, or. They are called conjunctions. Now, a conjunction joins two sentences together. So, for instance, I could have the sentence, I went to the shop, right? And, full stop. I bought bread. Okay, now they're two separate sentences, right? But what I can do is I can turn them into one sentence by using a conjunction, like and. Oh, sorry, I went too far. There we go. Like and. I went to the shop and I bought bread. Makes sense. They do not start a sentence though. They join sentences together. Okay? So be mindful of that. Cool. Alright, let's look at topic sentences. So, a topic sentence basically is the introduction to each paragraph. Okay? So, what it should do is tell me exactly what the point of your paragraph is. Okay? It shouldn't have any evidence in there. It should just be one sentence that tells me what the paragraph is about. Now, if you're somebody who accidentally slips evidence in sometimes, avoid the word when. When seems to be that trigger word that we use when we're going to start telling someone about something that happens in the text and giving evidence. So, for instance, you might kind of say, Balaram is not a good person. When? And then obviously I'm going to go into telling you about a time that he wasn't a good person. What I should have done is stopped at Balaram is not a good person. Full stop. Okay? So, what you should also try and do in your topic sentence is tie in some keywords. Oh, look, my lovely rainbow pen. I don't know why I can't get the rainbow pen to come back again, but regardless. Now, you want to use some keywords so that you can show your marker that you're answering the question, okay? In Year 12, you cannot score above a 5 out of 10 if you don't answer the question on the exam, okay? So what you want to do is make it as clear as possible to the examiner that you've answered the question. And the easiest way to do that is to tie in some of your keywords. So, here is my topic sentence for the plan that we did earlier. Adiga portrays immorality as vital to success in India. Okay, so I've obviously got the word moral and success in there. And that idea of vital means, like that you have to have it for success, which is basically the question. So an examiner would be really happy with this because it's a very straightforward way of knowing this paragraph is going to be about the question. This is good. Okay, now we move on to evidence. So, the great thing about White Tiger is that there is loads of evidence because it's a really rich story. So I don't think you'll struggle too much to be able to find evidence that can prove your points, as long as obviously you're arguing something that's reasonable. So, your evidence can come in two forms. Either a quote, so taking words directly from a text, or a direct discussion of a theme. I would suggest combining these. Okay, so giving a bit of a quote and embedding it into your language. So we talked a little bit about embedding last week, so hopefully you're going to start practicing that. So let me show you my evidence. So this is for the paragraph that we were saying that we were going to write on, that it was vital for success for you to be immoral. So I've written, Adiga's depiction of Laxmangar, landowners, excuse me, shows that success in India thrives on abusing more vulnerable people than yourself. The boar and the raven use their power over the men who work their land, degrading the men by forcing them to bow down to the landowner's feet and touch the dust under their slippers. Additionally, if the farmers did not have the raven's money, he liked to dip his beak into their backsides. Okay, so you can see in the evidence that I'm really targeting towards the question, where I've kind of got this success comes from abusing people more vulnerable than yourself, which would be immoral. I'm hoping you know that. The boar and the raven use their power, so I've used minor characters instead. So that I'm kind of doing something that's a little bit different. And then I've got my embedded quotes. So notice that I've kind of put it into my own language, degrading the men by forcing them to, and then I've got the quote, bow down to the landowner's feet, and then I've got those square brackets that say, I changed something, but it hasn't changed the meaning of the text. Okay, and I've done it here too. Okay, to make the embedding work nicely. So that's my evidence. All right, now what I've got is my explanation. Okay, now my explanation is the most important bit in the paragraph, okay, because it's where your points come from. Any monkey can recite a quote or tell me about something that happened in a film or in a book, in this case. But not everyone can actually tell me the significance of the events in a text, okay? And that's what you do in your explanation, okay? So your explanation is where you explain to me what your evidence proves. You should also make reference back to the contention using your keywords. Oh. So here's my explanation. This abuse conducted by the landowners demonstrates that Adiga sees immorality and the ability to exploit others for personal or financial gain as integral, now integral or integral, whatever, potato, that means like vital, yeah, or like super important to a successful person. Now, a lot of people would stop there, but you haven't given true justice to the significance of your particular piece of evidence, okay? Which, you know, you want to do, because the more depth you give in your explanations, the better your evidence works, the more likely you're going to score well, okay? So, I've gone further. By demanding their workers to hand over exorbitant payments, publicly humiliating them and sexually exploiting them, the landowners show that immoral behaviour is not only what makes them successful, but that it is the behaviour expected of them by their inferiors. Okay? So, I've just taken it that little bit further, which really kind of brings I guess more significance to the individual pieces of evidence that I'm providing. Now, you will have a look and see that I'm using my keywords, successful, humiliating them, sexually exploiting them, that's obviously immoral. Got the word immoral there, makes them successful. Okay. So I'm using those keywords again because I want to make sure that my examiner knows I'm answering the question. Now, you'll notice at the top here, I've got a little kind of thing, a little statement saying, use the 4 questions of explanation to add depth. Now, the 4 questions of explanation are as such. Oop. Hang on. Let me go down here. I will find them for you because I love these questions. I made these questions up last year with my year 11s because they were finding it really hard to get depth. Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. To get depth in their explanations, and so we came up with these 4 questions that we could use every time we had to make an explanation, so that we could get everything out of it, wring every last kind of bit out of it that we could. So this is what they are. Question 1, what does the evidence show? 2, how does it show this? 3, what is the author saying by showing this? And lastly, how is this relevant to your argument? Now, by asking yourself, though, that each time you have to do an explanation, you'll ensure that you really get everything out of your essay, out of your pieces of evidence. Now, keep in mind, though, that sometimes you won't need all 4 questions. You'll find that, well, my answer of question 2 really kind of answers question 3, and that's fine. But what they are prompts to kind of help you. And I'll attach this poster so that you can, print it out and love it as much as my year 12s do. Let me just downsize that. Uh-oh, I'm running low. Let me just plug in. So, now that we've done explanations, I'm going to give more evidence. Because remember, I was saying that you couldn't just give one piece of evidence anymore. You had to give multiple pieces of evidence because it's not enough just to prove that you're correct once. You need to prove it multiple times. So, here I'm giving more evidence. And I'm talking about Vijay. So, the character of Vijay also has to show a disregard for his morals in order to become successful. Again, I've got that word success and morals. Keywords. To live like a man, which is a quote. The bus conductor is rumoured to have allowed the politician to dip his beak into his backside, and as a reward he receives a job and a silver whistle. Later in the text, Vijay involves himself with the great socialist and assaults a man trying to challenge the corrupt voting system, stamping on him until he had been stamped back into the earth. Okay, so I've got quite a few quotes in there, and I've embedded them, which makes it look kind of nice and flow easily. Now, can you see how that adds further depth to my idea that I was talking about in the last paragraph about like people using immorality to kind of get further? So it just adds to my idea. And using Vijay is good as well because I'm showing that I have a really good understanding of minor characters, not just the main ones. Now I'm going to do an explanation for it. So Vijay is another representation of a man who is successful because he refuses to acknowledge even the most fundamental of morals in order to continue to rise to to success. He allows himself to be sodomized, that means the beak dipping thing, because he will be able to use this act to call in favours and extinguishes the life of another man he poses a possible threat to his political venture. Neither of these immoral acts cause him any disconcert, which means like worries, and do allow him to advance socially. Adiga creates the character of Vijay to show how, with a lack of morals, a man can rise above their circumstances. Right, so can you see how that really keys into the question? Okay. Now, this is a really great explanation, not just because I wrote it, but also because it discusses authorial intent. Now, we have talked a little bit about authorial intent, but just to remind you, authorial intent is like, well, it is what it sounds like. It's, when you discuss, like, the author's deliberate decisions. Deliberate decisions and choices. And considering that this is a book, everything is a deliberate decision because he wrote it. He wouldn't have created the character of Vijay unless he had a plan for him. He wouldn't have created the idea of the rooster coop if it didn't kind of mean something to him. Everything has meaning in books. And by talking about the meaning of things and that Adiga is meaning to do things, then you are addressing authorial intent, which is considered a quite high level response. Okay, so it's good for you to work in your explanations a discussion about Adiga, which is why when we were looking at those explanation questions, there is a question saying, hang on, I want to check exactly what I called it. Hang on, I think it's question 3. Yeah, what is the author saying by showing this? That's encouraging authorial intent. Oh, look, that one gets the lovely pen. I don't know, man. Doesn't matter. It's holding me back. All right, so let's keep going. All right, we're nearly there. Link sentences. So your link sentence is one sentence that ties up everything you've said during the paragraph and ties it back to your main argument, not to the next paragraph. It does not need to link to the next paragraph. Okay, it has to link to the main argument, your contention. Okay, so here's my example. This is all with the same paragraph. The characters of Vijay and the landowners are used by Arvind Adiga to demonstrate that in the darkness, a person must surrender their morality in order to succeed. Again, with the keywords. Okay, and it sounds very similar to the topic sentence because it should. Because they're saying the same thing. So if you've ever got stuck and you were like, I don't know what to write for this link sentence, I'm totally screwed, go back to your topic sentence, read it, reword it, stick it at the end. Okay? Right, we've not got much left. You should be very happy. We're nearly there. So this is what the whole thing looks like. Why I'm showing you this is, one, because I want you to understand that each part of the essay, of the teal, they're not separate paragraphs. They should all be like, see, I've got like India and I go straight from the topic sentence to the evidence, and then I go straight from the evidence to the explanation. I'm not starting a new sentence, like a new line. That's how it should be. You only start a new line when you're starting a new paragraph. Okay, you leave a line, you start a you leave a line and then start on a new line. So, the second reason I wanted to show you this is because look at how big my explanations are. Okay? Most people, it seems, write one sentence, if that, for their explanations, and it's just not enough depth. Your explanation should be the bigger part of your essay. That should be the chunkiest bit, because that's the bit that you're getting the points from. And the chunkier that is, the more detailed that is, the better it is. Okay? So make sure that your explanations are nice and chunky. And the way that you do that is you use those questions, those 4 questions. Okay? We're nearly there. Okay, so then we do those steps for each paragraph. So that's just paragraph 1. Okay, then we do 2 and 3. Same steps with teal. Conclusions. Oh, look, it looks suspiciously similar to the intro. That's because they're basically the same thing. You need the same thing, the tacker. Okay, so that's really easy. Title, author, contention, arguments. And If you got stuck with your conclusion, you've got 5 minutes and the bell's just about to ring and you're stressing out, go back to your intro, read it, jiggle it around so it says something different, but basically the same thing, and then stick it at the end. So, here's mine. In his reflection on life in the darkness of India's poor, Arvind Adiga makes clear in his novel The White Tiger that there are only two destinies: eat or get eaten up. He shows that the immorality is a key part of any successful person's personality, and that when one strives for success, their values must be sacrificed. Moreover, Adiga illustrates through the character of Vikram that those willing to stand by their morals and are exploited by those willing to forgo theirs in order to survive. Okay, so there are my arguments. Now, let's go back and find those keywords, because the conclusion needs those keywords too. So, where have I got them? Two destinies, eat or get eaten up. He shows that immorality is a key part of successful, and if one strives for success, their values must be sacrificed. And then those who are willing to stand by their morals are exploited by those willing to forgo theirs to survive. Okay, so that's done and dusted. That is literally all you have to write for a conclusion. Okay? Now, just because I love keywords so much and I keep harping about them, just a reminder that every intro, every topic sentence, every explanation, and every link, and every conclusion should all have keywords. Okay? So pretty much everything except the evidence should use keywords. So either the particular words that are used in the essay, in the question, or a synonym for them. Okay? There is no excuse. That's where they should be, over and over again. Last but not least, you need to proofread. Even Hemingway had an editor. Okay? You need one too. You probably don't know who Hemingway is. Regardless, you need a proofread. Okay? Slowly, aloud, at least 3 times, and it should take at least 5 minutes. Now you say, oh, aloud, I can't do that, it's a sack, and try and weasel out of it. No, you can still do it. Just sit there very quietly and whisper to yourself. Okay? No one will hear you because everyone's doing their own thing. You're not that important to them. They're not paying attention to you. You do you. You proofread. Now, if you're somebody who, like me, gets muddled when they're writing because your hand moves faster than your brain does, no, wrong way around. Switch that. Your brain moves faster than your hand does. I don't think my brain's moving very fast at the moment. Anyway, if you're in that position, what I would really suggest you do is that you say each word aloud as you're writing. Just quietly, just whispering, very softly, even just mouth it, I don't care. But basically, that's a really good trick to force your brain to stay in the moment that your hand is in, so that you can't start just, verbal diarrheaing and writing just random stuff that doesn't make sense, forgetting things like full stops and stuff, because you'll hear when it doesn't make sense. That's a little tip from me to you. It's something that I've had to do all my life, so don't feel weird about it. It's something that lots of people do, okay? So, proofreading, super, super important, okay? That's it. That's all. I got nothing more to say to you. It's been a pleasure. Well done. And just so that you know, you need to send me an email with the word egg. I don't know why I picked that word, but I thought it'd be a funny word. Egg. 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 Okay. Bye. Oh gosh, did you just hear that? Huh. All right, bye.